Good morning. I can feel the excitement overflowing in here, right? I know there are a couple of people when I was walking around the room, they were like, hey, is that Sean from The Bachelor? I'm not, so I apologize in that. Just to say this, though, to Scott and to David, I'm so glad to be here with you guys today. And a little background on myself. First and foremost, I like to tell people that I am a Christian. I'm a saved sinner. I mess up all the time, but by the grace of the Lord and by His grace alone, I am saved. I'm so fortunate. Father of 3 boys. I have an 11-year-old, Jake Ryan, a 7-year-old, Austin, and then we have our youngest child, Reagan, who is 4. We call him Wreck-It Reagan because he likes to get into everything. We were kind of concerned in the beginning when we found 3 numbers on his head. The doctor said they were all 9, so I'm good with that. I'm fine. No, he's a sweet guy. We call him Cuteness because he gets out of everything because he's so cute. I am the CEO of BFAC.com. It's a company that's 10 years old, and I have the opportunity to go about 40 times a year to go out and do speaking engagements. Now, this is my older life of me, where I got to cover the President of the United States, go to presidential debates, having lots of fun. That's actually from the White House website when I was asking the President a question, which he may or may not wanted to answer at the time. Blessed with a couple Emmy Awards. They're great paperweights. If you need a paperweight, win an Emmy. But I've had some great things, and here's the comparison of The Bachelor up there with Sean the Bachelor from Dallas. If you're sitting there going, I think I've seen Brad before, but I don't really know where. If you've seen the family film Borat, which I highly don't recommend, by the way, unless you're going to buy lots of copies, because I do get residuals. I was the guy on TV that actually interviewed him. I was blessed to get the chance to work with Kelly Ripa at a time. It was so much fun, and again, in the TV world, it was just a blast. I really felt like I was living a dream in that world. But God called me to get out of my comfort zone. He called me to get out of my boat. And He said, stop just sticking your hand in the water. I want you to actually get out and run this company. And so let me just give you a backdrop of BFAC.com. If you remember the TV show Growing Pains, and if you're young in the audience, you have no idea what I'm talking about, but Growing Pains was a big time show. Well, it could also define what it was like for us to start our company. We started it in the worst economy in 75 years, and it was a tremendous struggle. People see us today with 46 U.S. states as our clients, the actual states themselves, to do the communication for Guam and Puerto Rico and for the U.S. military, and to work with Toyotas and Chick-fil-A's and Buffalo Wild Wings. They go, man, that's awesome. But let me tell you, it was an unbelievable struggle in the beginning. It was really, really difficult. And I say this to you is that our first year income when I walked away from the television business was $50,000. That is not a lot of money, okay? That's not a great salary, let alone for an entire company to gross. It was unbelievably difficult. It got so bad just 6 years ago in 2010 that I had to borrow money to feed my family. Forget about paying for the house, forget about paying a car payment, just to get food on the table for my family. And when I say the desperation world I was in, it was really bad. We had to raid the kids' piggy bank for $20 so I could get gasoline so I could go to work. I don't know Togo, West Africa struggle, and I don't pretend to say that I know that kind of life, but I can tell you that in my own world, it was the first time for me to really ever completely, absolutely depend on God. And one of the things that I just overcame through that experience was trying to find people that I could see how God worked through their life. And for me, I didn't have to look too far. My dad, Don McMullen, who's just an awesome human being, is a survivor of the Oklahoma City bombing. Timothy McVeigh drove a Ryder truck to Oklahoma City on April 19, 1995, and blew up what was the Murrah P. Federal Building. My father was across the street in the downtown YMCA and had an entire roof collapse on him. He spent the entire day pulling people out of the rubble. And unfortunately, when they were going through the rubble, sometimes they would feel like they may have found other explosives. You've got to understand that back then they didn't know that it was just one bomb. So he would have to leave people that he had been talking to and then have to go back and find out that those people didn't make it. My dad inspired me in a lot of ways because he started a business in the 1980s, a hamburger place named after the Selman brothers, football players that played at the University of Oklahoma and had great success. Lucius Selman, Dewey Selman, of course Leroy, who was the #1 overall pick, the first pick ever for Tampa Bay. And so he started this hamburger place like a lot of people who start a restaurant, a lot of excitement, a lot of passion, but the restaurant went under. Now it closed and he inherited all this debt. Now he did not file for bankruptcy. Instead, he decided to work with his creditors to pay it out over a course of years. Now I didn't know this until I was going through my struggle, but my father actually drove 45 minutes away while I was in high school and delivered pizzas to help pay back that debt. Now what people didn't realize is in the daytime, he was the personnel director for Gaylord Enterprises, one of the largest companies. If you've heard of Opryland USA, all these different places. So he worked the corporate executive role in the day and he delivered pizzas at night to pay for his debt. So when I was going through this struggle, with the company, I went to my father and I sat down with him and I said, hey, do I need to go back in the TV business? Because TV is really, really easy compared to this business world. And he said, what's great, son, about where I am in my situation? I have no regret. There are a lot of people where God puts a passion on their heart and they don't listen to it. And through life, they may make money, they may become successful in a lot of different things, but they always have the regret. He had none. He told me that success is not defined by what you accomplish or what other people think of you, but it's what you did with the talents that God gave you. And so I decided to grind it out and work. And the Lord did bless BFAC. So what is BFAC? We are the #1 listed business texting company in the world. We were the MTA's Commercial Technology Company of the Year back-to-back years, which is the first time that's ever happened. We're actually debt-free. We have no loans. We don't even have a single credit card. The Lord has been so good to us, but I tell you, boy, oh boy, in the beginning it was really hard. And I remember going door to door trying to talk to businesses about why they needed to get a mobile app or why they needed to get business texting. And people would be like, are you at Chili's? Do you work at Chili's? Are we ordering an app before dinner? I don't understand what an app is. I even had a discussion with the CEO of one of the largest real estate companies in the world. And I was talking to him about getting an app, and I was trying to show him this new app called the Zillow app. And he goes, nobody's ever going to download that thing. Why would I download the Zillow app when I can go to Realtor.com? Or why would I download that when I could go to Century21.com? And I said, it's not that people are lazy. It's people just want a shortcut to information and be able to touch one button. And he didn't see it. And so we worked the streets and we kept talking to businesses and organizations and building it literally brick by brick. And in your situation, in your business, that's what you get to do. Every time you introduce a client to a new program, it's one at a time, and you're building it brick by brick. My own experience in my own lifetime, man, oh man, there was nothing in the world like stepping back and seeing what God was able to do through hard work and determination. Bobby Bowden, the Hall of Fame football coach, is our spokesperson for our company. Nothing in the world screams technology like an 88-year-old man who can't turn on a computer. I just thought it would go hand in hand. But again, we're blessed to work with great companies like Pepsi and 7-Eleven. WW Steel, they're the largest building contractor. They built Cowboy Stadium, Jerry's World. Our goal as a company, though, is simple. It's these 4 things. Help our clients build stronger relationships with their current customers, donors, members, or voters. Get new customers, save money, and improve their overall communication and marketing strategy by using technology. So what year is it? We all know it's 2016, right? Now, the reason why I say that is 2016 is different than it was 10 years ago when we started this company, right? It's different than when you started working for this company. And you've got to understand that and you've got to realize that, right? Most of you probably drive a different car today than you did 10 years ago, right? Most of you in your house, your carpet's different, your flooring's different, your paint's probably different, your TV set is probably different, right? So your approach to business should also be different. You've got to take advantage of the technology out there that can grow your business. Again, what do you see when you see people outside? People are on their phones all the time. He's talking about Norman Joseph. I took him to an OU football game when Oklahoma was playing Tennessee a few years ago at home. And everyone in the stands was on their phones while at the game. And I kept saying, look at all these people that are gravitating on their phones, even though there's a football game actually taking place. Do people carry around computers anymore? No. Do you see people when they're at the mall walking around with their laptop computer? No. Do you see people when they're at the football game carrying their laptop computer? No. When you see people on the airplanes, I'm in a plane 4 times a week, every single week. I used to see laptops on everybody's lap. Now there's none of them. They all have their phones or they all have tablets right in their hand because it's convenient. How many of you in here have a cell phone on you right now? How many of you have 2 cell phones? Exactly. It's the way the world works. So when you think about booming businesses, and we'll use One Life as an example, they're getting a mobile app ahead of most of the industry, probably 99% of the industry you guys are going to be ahead of when it comes to mobile technology. That's pretty awesome, right? I remember hearing the business model for a company called Uber. And everyone's like, no, they're never going to do any well because there's taxi cabs and there's websites and there's all these other things. They're never going to be well. Well, they went where the people were in getting a mobile app. And now they're a $50 billion company. You think of Netflix. I say this, when it comes to marketing and communication with your clients, you can either be Blockbuster or Netflix. Now, when I was a kid, Blockbuster Video was awesome. Right? I mean, you go to Blockbuster, you rent a movie, you return the movie. If not, they own your house. I mean, it was a really great philosophy there, right? They had college football bowl games. It was a really successful company. And then in 2006, Netflix went to Blockbuster and said, hey, will you buy us for under $3 million? Blockbuster said, no, not interested in that. Well, a couple years later, Netflix decided to get this thing called a mobile app to allow people to order their DVDs from their phone instead of having to log into a computer to do that. And then 2 years later, they said, why have to order DVDs when they can actually just watch it on their phone? Today, Netflix is one of the 50 largest companies on earth. So when you think about marketing, you think about communication, think about the successful people that are out there. And I always say this, when a plane lands, what do people do first? They grab their smartphones. 5, 6 years ago, it was click, 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 click. How fast can I get out of my, seatbelt? Now it's zzz, 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 zzz. And unfortunately, some people have figured out that right when you're coming in for landing, you could turn on your phones. I always suggest this. If you want to know how advanced when it comes to mobile technology the world is, go to an Apple store and stand in the corner and just people watch. I can never say this enough. You will find poor people, rich people, young people, educated people, women, men, girls, boys, it doesn't matter. They're all in that facility to pay a premium for devices that live and breathe on mobile apps. It's the way the world works today. I love this picture. They say a picture's worth 1,000 words. The top photo is of the Vatican in 2005 at the exact moment that the Pope was announced. The bottom picture is at the Vatican in 2013 at the exact moment that the Pope was announced. Now this was 3 years ago. Now NBC did a story on this, and they were talking about all of the people that had their phones and cell phones out recording the event. Now I was blessed enough to sit on the front row to the White House press corps to be able to ask the president questions. Now I said this many times, I had never seen more cameras in my life than when we were covering the oil spill disaster and being on the coast and watching people cover the president. Until I went to my son's first Little League game. Because everybody's got a camera on their phone. When we were growing up, we were not fortunate enough to have a VHS camera or a beta camera to record the games. Right? You might remember your Little League games where there was 1 or 2 parents that had enough money, right? So they had that video. And if you ever did a great play, you'd go up to the guy at the end and be like, hey, Mr. Johnson, how are you doing, Mr. Johnson? Is there any way I could get a copy of that tape? Because I kind of had a hit there, it was kind of great, because you're wanting that tape. Now, they're shooting in 4K video on their phone. And everybody's got a copy of it. And if something really funny happens, we're going to watch it on TV that night. If something really bad happens, we're going to watch it on TV last night. And if a squirrel or a cat can ski, we're going to watch it on TV, right? If you get one thing from this presentation, let it be this, that the world is mobile. And what's great is this company is going mobile to meet them. Go where the people are. So what is the #1 source of information in the state of Mississippi and every other state in the United States? #1 source of information. It's not the internet. It's not social media. It's not TV. It's mobile apps. It's kind of a trick question because social media uses mobile apps. 94% of the people that logged into Facebook last year touched the F on their phone. Mobile apps. When you watched the Super Bowl this year and CBS spent $20 million of their own dollars not to ask you to watch a new show, not to reinforce their news product, but instead to tell you to what? Download their app. When you see the local news stations, even here in Meridian, download our app, download our app. iHeartRadio, download our app. Radio stations, download our app. Newspapers, download our app. Why? Because when I was on television, people would actually come home and sit and watch a newscast. Now, if something happens, you already know about it. You know, I remember covering the WorldCom story and having that story for 2 hours that Bernie Ebbers was stepping down. And look, we tried to get it out, but it wasn't until we sat down on that TV desk and told everybody exactly what happened did people find out. Now, if something big happens, you're going to get a push notification on your phone and everybody's going to know instantly. That's the way the world works today. Now, this was interesting. This was in Forbes magazine. If any of you read Forbes, you probably have seen this. Forbes got unbelievable access with Apple. And so they were able to look at every Apple phone and every Apple iPad in existence. So it could be the original iPhone or to the iPhone 6 Plus, right? And what they found, not through research, okay, this is not a survey, but pure analytics, 86% of the time that those devices were turned on, they were on mobile apps. Only 14% of the time were they on a mobile website or a website. Now, it's great, and if you do this, if you search the App Store and you put insurance or burial insurance or anything like that in there, you're going to get tens of millions of websites. You can do it right now. If you've got Google, you can search it and you'll be like, holy moly, Kathy Tricoli. That's a lot of websites that are out there, right? So you have literally billions. Right now there are over 2 billion websites in existence battling for the 14%. Now, what's really cool is 86% of the time people are on apps, but right now there is a grand total of 1.5 million apps on Earth. That's it. You know, think of Angry Birds. I always use the Angry Birds example. They were laughed at Nintendo. Sony wouldn't meet with them, right? 4th consecutive year of $1 billion or more. Because they went to the App Store. It's an 8-bit Nintendo game. It's like Excitebike or Double Dribble or Techno Bowl all over again, right? Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, right? You know? It is what it is. This is not like the most graphically pleasing game ever, right? It's a bird who's angry. You just want to tell him to wing it, right? It's a bad joke. But the reality is the game went where the people were and it made billions of dollars. So what are the most downloaded apps by category? Now this is all, again, pure analytics. 20% are video games. I would have thought it would have been like 85%, right? Because it seems like every game in the world's coming out and somebody's downloading it, right? And Arnold Schwarzenegger's dressing up in like armored whatever and they're telling people to download it. It's really only 20%. Education is 10%. That's kind of a stretch, so anything to do with Oklahoma Sooner football or anything, that's considered educational. Business is 9%. If you go where the people are, they're going to be able to find you. All right, some cool things that you can do with technology. You can integrate social media now. You can even walk it back to your car. But the greatest part that this company is doing for you, what's the greatest marketing strategy since the beginning of time? Personal recommendation, exactly right, right? What's a warm lead like to you? It's phenomenal, right? It's Mom's chocolate chip cookies. It's really good, right? The warm lead is awesome. So what would it be like if somebody who likes you, that wants to refer you to a friend, but really is kind of intimidated about calling them, right? Or maybe introducing you because they don't have enough time, but they're giving you a name and number. That's one thing, but how cool would it be if they received a text message from their best friend that was introducing you? It can be done now through this technology. The share feature is unbelievable. We looked at how Instagram went from nothing to being $1 billion acquisition by Facebook. You didn't see the Instagram TV commercial, right? Got a picture? Share it on Instagram. That never existed, right? They didn't do SEO. They didn't even have a Facebook page, but they had a share feature which allowed the people that had the Instagram app to be able to share it with their friends. So in one touch, your customers, your clients are going to be able to share the company's app with their friends and family. So now you're going to be able to talk to them, which is really cool. And they'll also have a parked car finder feature. So if you go to a ball game and you forget where you parked, how many of you have ever done that before? Or if you're like me and you're on the phone when you go to Walmart, and I'm a guy, so I really can't multitask very well, no offense, but I walk into Walmart, I'm on the phone, and I walk back out, and I'm like, oh my gosh. My car's the black one. You know, and you know, if you've only been to some place one time, it's really easy to kind of remember where you parked. But when you've been to that place like 50 million times and you probably parked in every single parking space, like I don't know what to do. What's great is that you'll be able to download the One Life app, touch a button, and it'll walk you right back to your car. The other cool part is to be able to relate with people where they actually live. How cool would it be for you to say, hey, I want to support our local high school football team tonight? Well, you're going to be able to circle the stadium with this technology and be able to communicate with everybody in the stadium that has your app and tell them, go Tigers. And be able to circle the Florida Gators and say, go Gators. Or the Oklahoma Sooners and say, go Sooners. You're going to be able to do that with this technology, and nobody else will get it. Again, why apps? Apps are used more than websites. 3 out of 4 people actually look at their smartphone now before making a purchase. Isn't that crazy? 4 out of 5 consumers use their smartphone to shop, and the last one that I love, I think it's huge. Consumers spend more time on apps than they do watching TV. 198 minutes a day on mobile apps and only 168 minutes a day now watching television. And when it comes to reinforcing value, 64% of consumers automatically view a company that has an app as being better than a company that doesn't. Perception, unfortunately, is reality in business. You know, when we talked about the Olympic Park bomber, who, by the way, Richard Jewell wasn't the Olympic Park bomber, but that's what everybody refers to him, right? He passed away a few years ago. The FBI cleared him. The CIA cleared him. Everybody in the world cleared him. But there was a study, actually, Donna, that 82% of Americans still think he had something to do with it. He wasn't even there. You know, perception is reality. So they showed a picture of a doctor holding an iPad mini with the hospital's app on it, and they showed a picture of a doctor holding a clipboard and a pencil. And they asked 300 people, which doctor would you rather receive medical advice from or perform surgery on you? All 300 people picked the doctor holding the iPad mini with the hospital's app on it because their perception was this doctor's up to date. He knows something the other doctor doesn't know. The crazy part, it was the actual same doctor in both photos, and they showed his face. All the people saw was the technology. And it's funny, is after I read that research, it was not this year's Super Bowl, but last year's Super Bowl. Do any of you remember the Chevrolet commercial where they showed these girls and they were showing a guy standing in front of a truck and then like a smaller car, and then when he's standing in front of the truck, the girls are like, he is so hot. He is so strong. He is so cool. That guy is amazing. And the guys were like, man, he's trustworthy. He's awesome. And then they showed the same guy in front of a car, and they're like, yeah, he's not cool. It's like, he got picked on at the lunchroom. Nobody liked him. It's the same guy, but the perception from the people in the audience is they were looking for a certain thing. And that's what technology is going to reinforce to your people, to your customers, that we're giving you great value. You can shop us anywhere. We're giving you great value. What's amazing, though, is that people dive into that technology and love it. Now, interesting part about texting is the #1 form of communication in every single county in every single state in the United States. It's almost 4-to-1 over phone calls made. What we want to help you do with technology is build a better relationship with your customers, right? How do your customers talk to their best friends? Texting. How do they talk to their spouses? Texting. USA Today said it best that over 90% of Americans don't even know their spouse's phone number. because it's saved in their phone under convenience when they're texting, right? We don't call people as much. And only 7% of the phone calls that are made today are actually completed. Most of us get voicemail. Why? Because we try to take a 16-hour day and put it into an 8-hour day. We're constantly working. You can't take 50 phone calls at once, which is what's great about texting. Now, the other thing is the bottom line stat. There are 34 million more active cell phones in the United States than every man, woman, and child alive in the United States. And if you think of email as being, hey, that's the way I'm going to communicate with people and follow up with people and get new leads from people, how many of you in this room have ignored or deleted at least 10 emails this morning? Exactly. I always say this, that the key to building a great relationship is to treat people the way you want to be treated. If you don't read the emails, why would you expect them to read the emails? The other part is that if people you love and respect, right, are sending you emails today in 2016, it's almost a suggestion, right? Because if it was really important, my sister would call or text me. But instead, the email is kind of a suggestion. It's the same thing, but when you get a text message, you actually read it. All right, truth about social media. How many of you have a social media account? All right. How many of you have noticed lately that a lot of the trash, if you will, or people that you really didn't know are now all of a sudden being removed from your social media account? Well, Facebook doesn't want to become the next MySpace. All right. So they are creating an algorithm to virtually remove the people that you really didn't know from your Facebook page. How in the world are they able to do that? Well, here's the simple part. They look at who you actually visit. Who are you searching for in your Facebook bar? And they now show them in your newsfeed. Everybody else is being removed. 6 months ago, when you would scroll through your Facebook page, you could literally scroll 20 or 30 times and you would go back 15 minutes. Now, if you log into Facebook and you scroll 5 or 6 times, you may go back 2 days. It's not that the people that have liked you or become your friends aren't posting stuff on Facebook. It's just Facebook is removing them without removing them from your friends page. Did you know you can even actually go through and unfollow people and they'll actually be removed from your newsfeed entirely, never show up ever again, but you're still friends with them on Facebook and they don't even know it. Now, what does that mean in the world of business? How many of you have tried to use social media to grow your business? All right. Here's the reality. They own the data. You go out, you get the land, you build it up, they own it. And then if you need to boost your post, they're going to charge you to boost it. I remember when Zuckerberg said, hey, we're never going to charge to use Facebook. I literally fell out of my chair laughing. Like, that's how they make money. And then they went public and they were $30 a share and then they fell to $17 a share and then all of a sudden, guess what? We're going to charge to use Facebook. Now, they don't just come out and say, we're going to charge you to use Facebook. It'd be like, hey, go out, get a bunch of people to like your page, go out and get a bunch of people to be friends with you, and then, by the way, if you ever want to communicate with those people, you have to pay to do it. All right? It's a business. Think of it like a TV station. Think of it like a radio station. What's great about this company is they're going to be using texting and apps to build a data stream for you to be able to communicate with people, and you're not going to have to be treating it like Facebook and having things turned off. One thing about business, and again, my father was a great inspiration for me, is that it's not easy and it's always filled with obstacles. And I love to reinforce this to people. How many of you have heard of Kurt Warner? Warren Moon. Right? Both of those guys are in the Hall of Fame, and they were never drafted. Tony Romo, who has been the quarterback of the All-Pro team, he's been an All-Pro, right, and the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys, despite all the technology, all the recruiting services, right, he was never drafted. So imagine going through the entire draft and being told by every team, you're not good enough. They were. They didn't quit. I love baseball. I'm a huge baseball fan. I've always been a big baseball fan. I've had the opportunity to go to Cooperstown. The best players in the world are inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. You know what the average is? 300. So the best in the world fail 7 out of 10 times every time they go to the plate. It's the same thing in business. You can prepare really hard. You can work really, really hard, but sometimes you strike out. That's why I love Babe Ruth. 1926, 27, 28, 29, led the entire majors in home runs. But he also led the league in strikeouts. But nobody talks about that. They just talk about the hits the guy had. And then he hit 60 home runs in one season. And he was setting all-time records for strikeouts, but he never gave up. And Michael Jordan, arguably the greatest basketball player of all time, he missed 9,000 shots. Aren't we glad he decided to take another one? Imagine that. I mean, people when they're on the court, they're not like, man, that dude has missed like 8,999 shots. I would not give him the ball. They're like, dude, did you see this guy? He is amazing. I mean, people want to be like Mike. Man, he drinks Gatorade and doesn't sweat. He's phenomenal, right? Everybody want to be Michael Jordan. But the guy failed time and time again. I look at Steph Curry. I love Steph Curry. They were playing the Celtics about 3.5 weeks ago. And it was the end of the ball game, and they come in and they pass Steph Curry the ball, and he had an open shot to win the game, and he missed it. And I think it was their only loss at home this season. And so all the reporters come up, and they're talking to the teammates, and they're like, hey, can you believe he missed the shot? Can you believe he missed the shot? And Steph Curry said, hey, you know what? Every day I'm going to fail. But I can tell you tomorrow I'm going to take another shot. It's the same thing in business. I love Steve Jobs for a lot of different reasons because he was an overcomer. Guys, he never wrote code. He was never some brilliant scientist. You know, he started his company in a home inside a garage. Right? Now, I always say this, he had some leg up on me. We started ours in Mississippi in a home without a backyard or even a garage. He at least had a garage. But the thing about him is that he was called into the Apple board and fired. So the company he started and the board members he helped select and the investors he brought together brought him in and said, number one, you've lost it, you're no longer creative and you're not a good leader. And number two, the future of this company is without you. Thanks for coming. Or as NSYNC would say, bye, 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 right? That was a bad joke. So he got fired. Did he quit? No, he went out and tried to start another company, and eventually leveraged it to come back to Apple, and then he introduced that iPod thing, and then that iPhone thing, and that iMac thing, and eventually, you know, what we call the iPad. Unbelievable success, but he was able to overcome it. You know, I can't say it enough. Einstein said, I failed my way to success. If you don't try, shame on you. You know, success and winning comes from getting up off the mat. You know, especially in sales. Goodness. There's no greater example than this guy. And I mean this. No greater example. At age 9, his mom died. At age 21, he opened up a store that went bankrupt. At age 22, he ran for public office and lost. At age 25, his business partner died and he inherited all the debt. At age 28, he asked his girlfriend to marry him and she said no. That's a pretty rough first 28 years, right? At age 30, he asked another girl to marry him. She said yes, but a year later she called off the engagement. At age 32, he did get married. At age 33, he ran for office and lost. At age 36, he was actually elected to Congress, which was pretty cool, but he lost re-election. At 41, he experienced something that I hope nobody in this room ever gets to experience. He lost a child. His son died. At 44, he ran for the U.S. Senate and lost. At 46, he ran for vice president and lost. And at age 49, he mortgaged everything he had to run one more time for the U.S. Senate. And he lost. Considered a failure by most everyone. But at age 51, Abraham Lincoln was elected president of the United States. Now, when you watch the movie Lincoln, they didn't talk about any of that stuff. When you read the books on Lincoln, they don't talk about any of that stuff. You know why? Because his presidency was smooth sailing. Nope. Right? arguably the most difficult time in our nation's history, he took the reins. It wasn't easy. It wasn't a hot knife through butter. It was a challenge. But leaders accept the challenge. They overcome stuff. Now let me give you reality. Each of you in this room have been given special talents and gifts from God. You have been. Whether you recognize it or not, you've been gifted. And I love to look for reflection in all different stuff. I'm a historian. I was a history minor, and I love Moses, okay? Not the Bible story Moses that you saw on TV, right? Not Charlton Heston Ten Commandment Moses, but the real Moses. The real Moses, when God used him to do some of the greatest things this world has ever seen, ever, he was a wanted murderer. He was an outcast from his own land. He was an average shepherd. Okay? He wasn't shepherd of the year, and the award goes to Moses. No, he was average. Seriously, like he was average. If they were doing kickball with the shepherds, he wasn't getting picked first. He was average. Oh yeah, by the way, he was in his 80s. And he had a stuttering problem. So God used a man who struggled to speak, who was defamed and wanted in a territory where he was raised, who was plain and simple average, to change the world. So my challenge to you, since each and every one of us in this room have been equipped with far more talent than Moses, what are you going to do? The devil wants you to hit the snooze bar on life. Your enemies want you to hit the snooze bar on life. Nobody is going to come to your doorstep and knock on it and say, hey, you're looking for the easy life? I got it right here. Here's success right here. Nope. But you have to make the decision that I'm going to rise above and succeed. You have to make the decision, what am I going to do about it tomorrow? You've got to have a plan. If you don't have a plan, you are going to plan to fail. You got to have work ethic. You got to work hard. I was blessed this year to be able to go to CMA Week to hang out with a bunch of Nashville country artists. And I say this, that I learned so much from hanging out with them because their stories were unbelievable. Think about these people that are successful today, right? Is Garth Brooks the sharpest looking guy in the world with the best voice? Nobody outworks him though. Nobody. I love Toby Keith. He's a great Oklahoma guy, an incredible story. Toby Keith went to Nashville and met with every single record company with his cassette tape. And if you're young out there, you don't know what a cassette tape is, I'll tell you about it afterwards, right? But he goes with this cassette tape and he goes to every single place and everyone tells him, you are not what we're looking for. So on his last night in Nashville, he goes down to a local bar and he plays at this bar where there are a bunch of record people in attendance and no one talks to him. So he calls his wife and says, I'm coming back to Oklahoma City. He gets on the plane. He sees an old friend of his on the plane. And she's like, hey, Toby, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I was coming to Nashville, trying to get a record deal. It didn't work out this time, but you know, I'm gonna keep trying. She's like, hey, do you have a tape? Well, yeah, I got a tape right here. So I know some people in the record industry. I'm gonna get them that tape. Because he didn't give up. Guess what? 6 of those songs were #1 hits on that tape. Now, the interesting thing that I want you to get out of his story is that by 1992, he had the Song of the Year and was the Horizon Award winner with a song called Should Have Been a Cowboy. I think it should have been called Should Have Been a Sooner, but that's, you know, neither here nor there. But he has this success, right? You're thinking, man, he just went off to the races and everything was great. Not so. Within 2 years, his record label had dropped him. So he had all this success and now he was out of everything. So he was able to sign with another record label. They didn't like him. So he had to mortgage everything he had to buy from that record label for $100,000 the rights to this album. And then he went around shopping it to other labels and nobody wanted it. Fortunately, DreamWorks was opening a record label in Nashville, and they decided to take him on. Well, he goes in there, they release the first single, and it is an utter flop. Terrible. So Toby Keith is done. Nope. Toby Keith refused to give up. He got told no, and he decided to go work and work and work and talk to radio stations everywhere about playing a single that he truly believed in, called How Do You Like Me Now? And 30 million sales later, he was an overcomer. He was never given the full deck, but he worked harder than anybody else. Again, what are you going to do with your talent that God's given you? And when you face an obstacle or challenge, are you going to run from it or are you going to run to it? You know, I'm just a guy from Norman, Oklahoma holding a microphone. I have faced challenges in my life. I don't know your unique challenges, but I know this. God has a plan for your life. He gave you the gifts and talents as you have, and also He gave you your weaknesses. He knows them because He gave them to you. I have as much to do with my talents as I do my height. Now, God's got a sense of humor, because if you ever watched me play basketball, you would have a great prayer life, because I'm not very good at basketball. But I say that to you is to encourage you to go out and work your tail off. Don't just dare to dream. Dare to live the dream. Use every day you have to do something special. Invest your talents in something that you love and do it. Don't hit the snooze bar on life. The devil wants you to put off whatever you want to do to a later date. Time is precious, guys. There's a reason why you're here. There's a reason why you're working with this company, and there's a reason why you have this opportunity. Don't hit the snooze bar. Go rock it out. God bless you. Thank you so much for your time today.